like a mole or a dimple that gives it character on the face. Or a little pop of color in an outfit. Okay, that's what these little movements in the fingers are doing, as opposed to going like this. If I just go like this, this is great. This could work in a song and beautiful. Many pop songs have a shaker movement that's just like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you start doing stuff, go from here to here, it's the same groove, but it's a little different. Hey, what's happening, everyone? William Johnson here, and this is a percussion tutorial. And as you can see, we're outside. So I'm on my back patio, my porch, and it's springtime and it's beautiful. And as many of you have been, I've been spending a lot of time at home, indoors, and well, even though I've got two beautiful windows in my studio, I thought I would go ahead and move this outside, get some fresh air, and yes, it's been great. And where I live, we're pretty spread out compared to the city. We're pretty far out. I am quite a little ways from my neighbors here, so I think we'll be good to go ahead and have a percussion tutorial here on my patio. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about shakers. So the next few videos, I'll actually be talking about going more in depth of playing various patterns and some exercises that you can do and work on to increase your stamina as well as your feel, basically, and how you approach playing the shaker. In the previous episode of Shakers, one of the grooves that I was doing was more of a samba type feel. Basically sounds something like this. Right? Now, to do that quickly and for a long period of time takes a little bit of work. It takes a little bit of practice. And it really is a matter of finger control and wrist control. And so I'm going to show you a couple exercises to develop that. Now, hopefully this will encourage some of you who have had a hard time working on this. I personally, when I first started out playing and playing a lot of shakers, I started playing in the church. And the church that I was at, we did a lot of gospel music. And sometimes the praise and worship could go for as short as 30 minutes or more often an hour or longer. So if you're playing every Sunday for an hour, sometimes an hour and a half before the pastor even gets up, and that's your praise and worship, that's your music. Well, if you're doing that every week for, a whole year, and then in my case, there was often times where we might have a conference or a revival, and so now you're playing 4 or 5 times a week. So you're talking about playing as low as sometimes 60 times a week or as many as 100 plus, whether they be worship concerts, whether they be praise and worship during conferences or revivals. So yeah, 120 plus times a year just for church, not even talking about concerts outside of church. You start building up a lot of stamina. So you may say, well, I don't know how that encourages you. My point is, when you see me doing stuff like this and able to play a lot of other things, or to be able to do that for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes nonstop without getting cramped up or anything like that, well, I built up technique, but I also built up stamina. So don't get discouraged if you're not able to do this within a matter of a few days or a couple weeks. This is something that I've worked on for years and years and years. In that particular church that I started, while I was doing stuff in that particular style and that much praise and worship for 13 years straight. So in that particular style and genre and platform, if you will. So that's a lot of hours. And now we're talking about, even though where the types of churches and the types of concerts that I do even outside of the church, even though the sets might not be as long, we're talking about well over 20 years now. So I've had a little bit of practice, but you too can be doing what I'm doing and much better if you just employ a few of these techniques as well as some structured practice and really work at it. All right. So the basically what I'm doing here is I'm not just playing straight forward. Okay? Like that. And I'm not even playing just straight forward like this. And if you can see my elbow, what's happening here is, if I were to play what I'll say incorrectly, I know there's no real incorrect way to play, but there are some ways that can help you to get better, more efficiency. All right. It's not just back and forward. You have to be careful that your let me put this down real quick, that your forearms here, okay, the forearm where the bicep and the forearm, sorry, I have my jacket on, it's a little cool out here still, but the forearm and the bicep are not tense. You don't want just a bunch of this, okay? You want to employ some movement in your shoulder as you're going forward, as well as wrist. Now if you look, I'll play this and watch what my wrist does. You see this motion here? Just watch it for a moment. Now, without playing a bunch of fingers, I'll just play wrists. All wrists. You see that? This motion right here is what I'm doing. Now, and you also see this part here, how it's moving. In, out. So I'm employing the work of the joints, okay? The joints are moving as opposed to the muscle making it happen. When the muscle makes it happen, then you are going off of all strength and stamina. Okay, now there's still all stamina, but when you're just going on the stamina and strength of your muscles, you're going to time out much quicker than if you work on these joints. So how do we get this involved? Well, here's one exercise that you can work on. Basically, just straight eighth notes, all right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, we're going to just do that. So just do that with me for a few bars where you 1 and 2 and 3. Just work on that with me. Okay, this is the base of what we're doing. All right, go forward. It's just like this. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. You're throwing it forward and backwards. 1. Try to keep this part of your shoulder relaxed. So tense up and then drop the shoulders and relax. Okay? If you're not sure, I'm not sure if I'm relaxed. Well, tense up a little bit and then totally relax. Okay? And 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right. Now, the second thing that we're going to employ is the other movement that you see me doing is where I go forward and I drop back a little bit. It's not a full movement. It's like a half movement. But I move to a different direction. And I throw it forward a little bit down. So this is what I want you to do. Move forward and back, and then the next time, stop halfway. All the way, halfway, halfway. And when you do the halfway, you can point down just a little bit. Be careful about doing too much of this though, okay? Sideways. We don't want to develop any carpal tunnel or arthritis or basically anything that can cause pain or injury in the joints. But just halfway. 1. See that? That's the motion right there. Now, fast, that's what's happening, okay? So this is giving you just a glimpse of what's happening and what I'm actually doing in playing the shakers. This allows me to be able to play longer, faster, all right? And still be relaxed, okay? The other thing that's happening is the fine motor control, and this is just a matter of just playing. Just practice, getting a lot of time in, and the more time that you get in, the more that you're going to start being able to develop this fine motor ability. It's really no different than writing with a pencil or pen, right? When you see a child and you teach them, at first everything's fisted, and then later on they start developing this tactile movement that it develops into that fine motor control. It's the same thing with the shaker. And what's happening is and I spoke about this in another video, is it's this movement. You see that? Forward, thumb and finger. There's some control in there. And this is where you start getting into the almost like ghost notes on a snare. It's the little things that make what we call feel, right? That change the feel, that makes the feel a little funkier or more groovy, makes it less monotonous, makes it more exciting. It gives it character, right? Like a mole or a dimple that gives it character on the face. Or a little pop of color in an outfit. Okay, that's what these little movements in the fingers are doing, as opposed to going like this. If I just go like this is great. This could work in a song and beautiful. Many pop songs have a shaker movement that's just like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you start doing stuff, go from here to here, it's the same groove, but it's a little different. Let's A and B that. Let's see the difference between the two. Here's just straightforward, but with the funky samba-like accent. But I'm using more of my muscles and less dynamic control, not as much fingers employed. So it sounds good, I think, but if I really want to settle in and give it a little more inflection, like I'm doing with my voice right now, to draw you in, create some atmosphere and interest, then I start employing more of the joints, less of the muscles, more of the fine motor control with the fingers. Here we go. You hear that? Back to the first way. Changing now. Now, it's more of a, instead of, so the rhythm does change slightly, okay? But what changes is the accents, and I'm drawing out the accent a little more. Now, in order to really get that, technique is what's necessary, but personality is what is king and queen. And what I mean by personality is how much you're willing to pay attention to what you're doing. Now, the buzzword for this is presence, right? Mindfulness, presence are the popular words that are employed for this type of thing. But really, that's what this is I am present with what I'm doing. In other words, I'm actually paying attention to every little thing. And it's like I'm making orange juice or apple juice, and I'm squeezing every ounce of flavor and juice out of that fruit, right? I'm not just satisfied with it just being a good shaker. I'm thinking, is this as good as what it needs to do based on what the guitarist and the bass player and the drummer is doing? If the hi-hat's going, do I need to be as busy or maybe less busy? Do I need to draw out my accents, or do I need to make the accents less? So I'm really present. Am I being too dynamically too loud? Is it too harsh? Do I need a different shaker? Do I need to make the beads inside swish more as opposed to actually hitting the plastic? That's called attack. When you hear the element actually hit the other element, so the beads inside, if they're actually, you're hearing, or like a stick hitting the cymbal, the wood and the brass hitting, or this, as opposed to, they're still hitting, but I'm not hearing as much of the attack. That's what attack is. I'm hearing more of the, I still need attack, because otherwise it won't sound like a shaker or percussion, right? I won't hear that, but I want less of it. Maybe I'm still doing a shaker right now, but I'm trying to let the bead not touch as much as possible. Maybe that's what's needed. Less attack, now more attack. See that? Those little things are what makes the feel of a shaker feel good or not as good, okay? So there's a lot of character that can be squeezed out of the shaker when we're paying attention to all of that. So again, to recap what we talked about, is it's less of the forearm and the bicep and the shoulder staying still. So we're not doing this and we're not doing this. But we're doing, see how I come up and I throw forward, come back with the wrist as well, okay? And dropping down, and then halfway down. So it's more of these joints. And the way you do that is just practice, okay? Just like this. And the more you start moving that wrist and paying attention slowly with a metronome, eventually your nervous system will lock in on what you're doing, and the more you do it, the better you get at it. All right. So hopefully locking in on some of the finer details of what's happening with a shaker to make it sound like this. and all of these different little details, right? Harsher, less harsher. Hopefully some of this is shed some light for some of you that have asked for more detail in getting the shakers. And we'll camp out here for a little while and talk more about other things with the shakers. But I want to go ahead and get this started, and it's a beautiful day. So yeah. Anyways, God bless you. Heaven smile upon you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And yeah, see you soon.